here we go. Our next presentation is all about making that important connection, the connection we've been talking about all day long. Our research shows that a majority of NKBA designers are not familiar with CEDIA. I have a question. So before we started this whole thing, how many of you knew about CEDIA? Okay. How many of you knew that there were technologists and certifications for this? And how many of you on a regular basis or even once have called a technologist to work with you on your job? Okay. The goal is that one day it'll be everybody, because they will help you make your jobs more successful, and they'll refer you when they meet with their clients. It'll just be bigger and better for everybody. Further, half the designers that are not in this room right now have never even worked with a tech consultant or a tech contractor. As we've said before, it'll be a better place when we all work together. In his talk, how do I suss out, I guess that's an English word, suss, it's certainly not a Texas word, how do I suss out the best integrated technology designers and integrators? CEDIA's Giles Sutton will discuss making that connection. It's fun to hear him talk. He's very knowledgeable and he has a great accent. Come on, Giles.
Thanks, Susan. Thank you very much. Right, let's get this cracking. That's really interesting, actually, to see how many people in the room have heard of CEDIA and have worked with CEDIA members and know about our industry. Well, hopefully during this talk I can actually go a little bit more into the process that CEDIA members will typically go through and how that can really dovetail into the work that you do as designers, and how CEDIA members can really add value to what you do. So we did speak, when I was on the panel earlier, I did give some background as to who CEDIA is. I said, we represent 3,700 companies globally. We're the only certifying body in the home technology space. So we have certifications in technical training, so in networking, as well as engineering certifications. And we have some other certifications that I'll go into a little bit later, which may help you when you come to actually select the home technology professional that you want to work with, or that makes sense for your business. So, we represent a large number of industry professionals across the world. So, what I really want to talk about today is how we work and the various technologies that we implement. And if you look at this slide here, we really do follow a very, very similar process to the one that you do. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't really understand, is the amount of design work that goes into an integrated system, a home technology system. So, and the key thing with good advanced planning, we end up with a much better result at the end of the day. And anyone in this room that has attempted to, bring a technology company in a little bit too late on in the project will know that ultimately it doesn't result in something that is particularly satisfactory, and can often result in actually something that's quite negative. Ultimately, we want to enhance your work and help you become more successful as well. And that is what a partnership with a home technology professional will result in. So I thought what would be helpful is just to talk a little bit about some of the technologies. I know that you've toured the show floor, you had the curated tours. So some of this, maybe a little bit of repetition, but this is just reflecting back on a little bit of the work that I did when I was an integrator in London, and the sort of approaches that I took as well. So perhaps it's helpful to have a recap on some of the technologies that CEDIA members would install, home technology professionals would install. So audio distribution is probably the foundational system that our industry is known for, multi-room audio. But I don't know, you've probably seen on the show floor now, there's increasing solutions that actually mean that you can have invisible speakers in ceilings, you can have plaster-in speakers, you can have speakers that are custom paint finished, custom paint matched, you can have them printed so they maybe would match a brick wall, they can be hidden behind fabric panels. So there's a lot of solutions here that really would enhance the work. The whole audio distribution can become completely invisible. Likewise with video distribution, think how we watch TV these days, how it's changed. How many people actually watch live TV? Well, we may watch news, we may watch sport, But most of the media we now consume is Netflix, it's YouTube, and actually with the younger generation, it's probably going to be even more so. It's all on demand. So what does that mean? Well, actually, the TVs are not really TVs anymore. They're actually computer monitors. They're actually computers that are in the wall. So that means that we have to treat them as networking devices. We have to wire them correctly for that. And also as technology moves forward, we're currently seeing 4K, Ultra HD. We're moving perhaps towards even 8K. I mean, it's staggering how the demand for higher quality video is affecting what we do. But ultimately, one of our favourite topics, and this really came up on the panel discussion as well, is lighting control. And I know we mentioned Lutron as well earlier. You know, if you haven't been there and you do have a little bit of time before you leave, I would really recommend you have a look at the Lutron experience. We mentioned the circadian rhythm and how lighting affects us. And I wanted to mention on the panel, you've seen with the likes of the Dreamliner, for example, the Boeing Dreamliner, how light is being used, colour is being used to wake you up or help you fall asleep. And actually, I always think it's interesting to reflect on where lighting is now. I think we're in the worst place for lighting than we've ever been. And it's all to do with LED. There's nods in the room, which is, people know this. So no matter how high or low you dim an LED fitting, it remains the same colour completely. There are some fittings, admittedly, that are coming through that are changing that. But think how that affects us. That cold light, no matter how high or low the colour temperature is. Oh, sorry, how high or low it's dimmed. That is totally unnatural. If we think back to the incandescent lighting fittings that we used to have, the halogen lights, that was actually more natural. Because as you dimmed it down, you got that gorgeous sort of orange glow as it's about to fade out. So hopefully with the new circadian rhythm lighting, human-centric lighting, which is another phrase, it will cure that, and we'll start to see some interesting developments. But there's really a need to plan for lighting from the start. This is one of those technologies where you can't introduce it late on in the project. This is something that the client has to be behind. So lighting has to be planned right from the start. Home theatre, well, the perception of home theatre is often always referred to, do you remember MTV Cribs, that program? The big, the sort of TARDIS, the big sort of spanning home theatre room. Well, actually, this has changed as well, thanks to new technology. We're seeing a rise in multi-use spaces, media rooms. So rooms that maybe adjoin a kitchen or a dining room, and actually using technology, you can make everything disappear. The screen, the speakers, it can all disappear, and you can actually get a very, very high quality performance from that. We actually had an article featured in the Wall Street Journal recently on this very topic, the rise of the multi-use space and how technology can be used to, particularly if you have built, you're in a metropolitan area and square footage is a premium, the mechanisms can be used to hide technology but still get a very, very high performance. Media centers, this is increasingly morphing into sort of Apple TVs and Fire Sticks, and it's the ability to store media on a device. But this is a really big one which really should affect everyone in this room. It's automatic window treatments and shading solutions. Again, this has to be, those that have worked, how many people have worked with motorized shading? Yeah, I expected a large number of hands to go up. How many people then have got to the point where they've considered shading but realized the cabling wasn't in place to do it? Yeah, a few here. So this again is something where preparation is so important. And this can also include perhaps motorized windows and motorized doors as well in this category. Security we're seeing rising as well. People are increasingly wanting to be able to view cameras in their home, be able to access cameras remotely. Phone systems, let's be honest, a little bit on the decline. we all use mobile phones. In fact, my parents don't even have a landline phone anymore. They use their mobiles. But they're often still used in larger homes for intercom. So if you want to page another part of the house to let them know, dinner's ready, that's where phone systems can be used. Did you have a question? Yeah.
They're also very important for emergency, like
absolutely
when there's earthquakes, because you can't. They take over the cell phones.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So yeah, having a hardwired phone system gives you that peace of mind and reassurance. Gaming rooms. So golf simulators, there's some of those on the show floor as well. Virtual reality spaces. This needs planning, because have any of you got children that have like a PlayStation and have seen all of these cables and accessories that are sort of spilling out of it? Yes. So you try and build that into cabinetry. You need to think about where everything's going to go. You have to consider that right at the start. Don't think about it right at the end and then end up with spaghetti. Pool and spa control, being able to control. I did a really fabulous project in Holland Park in London where we had a pool floor that raised up and became a dance floor. That was one of the most fun projects I worked on. But also you can actually control the temperature of the water. Moving into landscaping control, again, how many people have on a rainy day driven past a house and seen the sprinklers on? So we can, by controlling, understanding whether it's raining or not, you can make sure override that, not waste water. But other home automation systems may include climate control and also power management. Did anyone see any of the power management stuff at the show as well? There's some interesting developments there where the home can become completely off-grid and self-sufficient using batteries or power walls for the home. So this is a very interesting area through home automation. So this is where we start to talk about integration. So on the previous two slides, I've talked about lots and lots of different technologies. Maybe some of them have surprised you over the last couple of days, that actually the amount of different things that we as an industry are responsible for, can be responsible for. So integration is where you consolidate control. Would you want a separate control for every single one of those different pieces that we just discussed? Probably not. The idea of bringing it all together into one place, and I know that you had the talk from Control 4 this morning about the different stages of integration as well. So that may be control from a smartphone, a computer, a tablet, controller, but also voice. Did you see some voice control products as well? I think this is a really exciting area as well. Voice, for designers, isn't that wonderful? There's not going to be anything in the wall. you can just speak the command, and it can control the technology within your home. So here's a phrase that we love in our industry, and our wall acne. And we often get sent pictures from our members of this kind of setup. And this is what we as an industry strive to avoid, this kind of configuration where there's just multiple controls for different things. And why is the air conditioning control different size to every other control? They have to design their own design, and it always looks completely different when you put it next to a light switch. I have no idea. I can't speak for the air conditioning industry. But we're in this new kind of era of app acne, where actually it's just so many apps. Apps for lighting, apps for CCTV, apps for heating, apps for your music system, your Sonos. So wouldn't it just be wonderful if we just had one really simple control? And this comes back to what I said earlier, really. We don't want a smart home necessarily, we want maybe a simple home. It's about integrating into one very, very easy to use system. And integration can be on a tablet. It doesn't have to be in the wall. It could be a tablet. It could be a mobile. It could be a cell phone. It could be a wearable device, an Apple Watch. It doesn't have to necessarily be a touchscreen. So I thought what might be interesting is also just to make you aware of some of the programs that we have as an industry. We have our own awards program, which is a very prestigious event. Known for being one of the most prestigious award ceremonies in the industry, and we've been running this for many years. And you can find information on our award winners on our website. But we have various categories in our awards for best integrated home, best home theatre system, best lighting solution as well. But when coming to identify who you want to work with, a CEDIA award winner is a really great place to start in your local area, because the scrutiny that they have to go through to win this award is very difficult. And it actually, we assess their processes, their design documentation, and we need customer testimonials and references to support the work that they've done. I thought it would be really helpful as well for you just to see some examples of those award-winning projects and where a designer and an integrator has worked in harmony. And this is a project from an integrator based in LA called Kantara. And this house was actually for one of his actual designers that he works with all the time, the designer's own home, which is quite stunning, I have to say. But this has lighting, has CCTV. You can see we have some spa control as well. You see how the lighting has been very thoughtfully implemented to highlight the artwork on the wall. It's a funny thing in our industry with our awards and photographing our projects, because so much of the technology is hidden. It's actually very hard to actually see the technology that's within that home. But there's landscape music as well, and also shading solutions in this particular property. Did Brad talk about the idea of scenes in the home?
Yeah.
He did. Yeah. So a lot of collaboration went into creating the scenes. So when you come home, you have a home scene. So lighting and the climate will all sort of tie into one scene. Music may come on in the morning if you have a morning scene, which may also open the blinds or the curtains that you have in the room, the shading. So here's another picture of that project as well, where the lighting and the speakers in the ceiling have all been aligned absolutely perfectly. And within this space as well, there's a dinner party scene as well that ties in, and it makes sure everything is consolidated. And that is what happens when you integrate technology.
Now all the acne moved to the ceiling.
Yeah, so they actually obviously decided to use a ceiling speaker that is almost completely flush with the ceiling. You can see there, but yes, you could also plaster in speakers as well in that kind of. But you're right, there is a lot of acne on the ceiling, perhaps. The other thing, actually, before I go on to the next one, that's just reminded me, all of the lighting and the scenes in this home was also tied into the location of the house. So when the sun was setting, the lights would come on. It's not sort of like the traditional timers where lights would come on at 8 p.m. Everything lights up like a Christmas tree. It comes on depending on the location of the home. So this project is a 21,000 square foot home that's in the Midwest by an integrator called Premier Group, another CEDIA award-winning project. Security was a concern for this particular homeowner, and also longevity, future planning, future-ready home. So making sure that all of the infrastructure was in place if they wanted to upgrade the home in the future. Here's a bathroom. It was custom built with technology actually built into the mirrors. You can see here, so it's a TV there. You can see the touchscreen. It's a Control 4 touchscreen just in the reflection of the mirror there as well. And we've also got a games room here. Again, the TV mounted on the wall there. You can't see any cables or any outlets at all. Everything is completely integrated. So the benefit of a seamless relationship between integrator and designer. So you've had a lot of discussion. There's been a lot of panels today, and you've also had a walk around the show floor. So why use a home technology professional? Well, I actually think the answer is kind of in the question. It's because we're a professional, and actually we consider all the things that you do, and we follow the same kind of process. So I thought it'd be helpful at this point just to talk about the process that an integrator goes through and how that would work perhaps alongside the work that you do. So an integrator will always start with a design brief. Remember on the panel we're talking about understanding the lifestyle elements, so understanding whether a homeowner is a music lover, a movie lover perhaps, whether, as Peter said, whether they are an Apple family, whether they like Google devices, whether they work from home. Does one of the family work from home? How large is the family? Is security a concern? Is it a holiday home? Are they away from the home a lot? Is it going to be unoccupied a lot? So this is where really the work goes into understanding the client, understanding exactly how they live their life and putting a brief together. Next, as part of this initial discovery phase, an integrator would put together a scope of works. And that's the integrator's approach to understanding the particular needs of the homeowner. And that would be a description as to how it may operate, so that how the lighting might work. So this would include, critical items like lighting, climate control, networking, how technology might be implemented in different spaces. You may get a little bit more granular as to the number of speakers you may actually put in certain spaces. But this is the integrator putting his or her own stamp on the project, the particular personality coming through here. And that is why there's no kind of set formula for doing this. There's here we see 4 very, very different properties, and each one has a very, very different set of requirements. We spoke earlier about those critical items, those non-negotiables when it comes to technology that goes into the home. Well, one of them, we ran out of time, I was going to put my hand up, but one of them I would always say is the network. It has to be the network. How many people here could actually continue to do business or live your life if you don't have Wi-Fi, you're not connected all the time? And this isn't a network that you go to Best Buy and pick something off the shelf. This is a network that has been thoughtfully implemented. So you've considered the style of the property, and let's be honest, how many people have been in, for example, Manhattan, opened up your phone to connect to a Wi-Fi network, and you've seen just basically 20 Wi-Fi networks appear? All of that creates instability in networking. So a good integrator will consider the location of the property, the materials that have gone in, and ensure that a robust network is specified. It is, without doubt, the most important system, I would say, that can go into a home. And most integrators would often offer that as that kind of baseline kind of base package. So it's fundamental. Also, wireless is phenomenally unstable. We all know that, right? and there are times when you can't even explain why it's so unstable, but it just is. That's why integrators tend to use professional grade networking components, the sort of things that you find in offices. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the most expensive by any means. It just means that you're using commercial grade products that are maybe installed, for example, in the ceiling, so you don't have a network Wi-Fi booster hanging out the wall or something like that. But for me also, this is another differentiator between us and perhaps electrical contractors. When you look at a room, the way an electrical contractor would normally consider where to put outlets for plugging in devices, it would normally be quite formulaic. You'd go from one room to the other and you'd place them in. An integrator will, and this is why I said earlier, often remove a lot of those outlets, because there's no point putting an outlet where you're never going to need one. And that's really the critical point about designing a system correctly. So once we have the brief and we've established the scope of works and we've agreed the proposal and the proposal has been signed off, we then go through a very similar process to a lot of designers and architects. We go through a lot of design documentation production as well. So how many people in the room have actually seen a set of design documents from an integrator? No one? Okay. Yep, one. Fantastic. I'll show you some now. So this is again where it's so important when you're talking to a potential home technology professional, you take a look at their design documentation. Because for our industry, we always stress that all of the actual work happens at that stage. That's where you know whether a system is going to work or not. And that's the difference between ensuring that something is going to be reliable and it's going to be installed properly, than if you come along at the end and you suddenly find you've got lots of issues with maybe you've run out of connections or things like that. So here are some examples. This is the elevation drawing for the Premier Systems home that I showed you, the one at that bathroom. So we'll show you the elevation. This one here as well is the same home. This is called a positional drawing. And this is where every single component in the system is laid out. And you can see, does anyone know what those kind of pink fans are? Anyone want to have a guess what those are?
This fan.
Very good. Yeah, so that's the line of sight of the cameras. When it comes to Wi-Fi design, you often see what's called a heat map as well. So you can predict how a Wi-Fi network is going to run based on the construction of the house, and you can put a heat map and position those Wi-Fi boosters. Again, just making sure that they're put somewhere sensible, like in cabinetry, in a cupboard. It doesn't have to be on show, in the ceiling. So again, showing the amount of design work that goes in at this stage. So we see all the speakers, the outlets, the cameras, and probably on another layer of drawings you'd see where televisions might be installed as well. So this is, I don't want to get too scientific, but it's so important, I just had to include it. But this is a schematic drawing. And this is, again, what I was saying, this is what comes to understanding whether it's all going to be able to connect up, whether everything, and this is where we have speaker outlets and speaker positions, and it's where the whole system is mapped out. And this can take hours and hours to put together. So this is another area that needs to be considered really early on in the project. So, and I'll ask another question here. How many people have actually worked with home technology professionals on some projects that have things like this? Yeah. So, this is where mistakes can often be made if proper planning hasn't gone into it. So, often these rooms are underspecified. So, there's obviously specific ventilation and often cooling requirements depending on the location of the house for these specific areas. I wanted to include two very different approaches. One is a dedicated room where we have a rack installed that has all the equipment in it. And then one is where technology has actually been installed within some cabinetry as well. So there's different ways you can do this, but you have to understand the type of system that's going into the home before you can specify this. And that's why it's so important to bring a home technology professional involved right at the start.
I have a question. That does not look very different than the closets that we did 10 years ago with like the CD players and the tuners and it's very visually similar in size.
Yes. Do you want to did everyone hear that? Maybe repeat if that's okay.
My question is that is there
It's not on, sorry. Can we get that mic up? Thank you.
I don't think it's working.
Is it not working? Oh, there we go.
Oh,
That's on now. Here we go.
My question is, these racks don't look very different from the racks that we used 10 years ago with our audiovisual equipment. Why are they still so big, and are they just as hot as they used to be?
Oh, yes. So, yes, they are. And actually, they are just as big, I would say, in my experience. They haven't got any smaller, and it's mainly to do with amplification and satellite and cable boxes. Strangely enough, it's those satellite and cable boxes that generate all the heat. They really do. And actually, unfortunately, they're the things that are the most unreliable when they get hot. They freeze up. So, yeah, there's still a lot of space needed for this equipment. But obviously it depends on the size of the system. But any integrator would want to make sure there's space for upgrade as well. So there may be some empty space in one of these racks. But this is the point, you don't know how much space you need. Unless you have the luxury of, let's just, give you an entire room anyway. Unless you have that luxury, which let's be honest, does not happen all the time. You really don't know the amount of space you need for this equipment, and you don't actually know how much heat it's going to generate as well. And that's the work that an integrator will do with you, and that's why it needs to be thought about right from the start, so that you end up with a professional solution like that. So there's lots of different options for mounting equipment. It can be within cabinetry, it can be standalone like that. You can also, if space is an issue, you can also distribute the equipment around a property as well, so you could put it in different areas. But the ideal scenario is clearly the image on the left, is to have that dedicated space, but often that is not possible. Hello.
Our guide yesterday through the show was from British Columbia, and he taught,
Mike.
Yes, Mike, and
yes.
Mike talked about how expensive real estate is in that part of the world, and how he's integrating it into between studs kind of thing.
Right.
So, but that's only 4 to 6 inches
Mm.
thick. So are there, my question, are there racks that, equipment that will fit in that narrow, so?
No, not really. I mean, no, but everything is standardized. The size of all that equipment is standardized. You sometimes get half rack sized, but there's limited equipment options for that kind of size, unfortunately.
They're probably using part of the space inside the closet as well as part of the space inside the wall, and then also having it distributed throughout the
I would think
hall
so.
kind
Yeah,
of thing?
that would make sense, definitely. So just to provide you as well with some help when you start to talk to a home technology professional in the area, this is the typical roles that you would find within an integration firm. A sales manager, a system designer. The system designer is the person that would actually put that scope together, the brief and the scope. A CAD technician, which would work on that design documentation that I was talking to you about. Project manager. That is the person that is responsible for delivering the project on time and on budget. So a project manager would typically be handed over the project from a sales manager and would start to work with, if you have a project manager, would work with your project manager or would work with you and other people that are working on the project, like the general contractor as well. So the project manager would be responsible for going to site to ensure that everything is being installed correctly. And it's a very, very important role within an integrator. If your integrator does not have a project manager, I would ask the question how they manage to deliver a project on time and on budget. And yeah, you probably want to see some examples of their work and maybe have some client references because it's critical to have a project manager. Installation technician, networking technician, these are technicians that work on purely networks. Because of the importance of networking, as I mentioned, a lot of integrators have network technicians. Programmer, this is the person that would be on site and would maybe customize the look of the touchscreen, or would be the person that has the laptop out making the customized scenes that we discussed, so the lighting scenes, the home scenes, the away scenes that we mentioned. And the maintenance and support manager. Again, all of these does depend on the size of the company. The company may only have a system designer, a project manager, and maybe some technicians. But increasingly companies have their own support managers or maintenance teams. And that might be something when you look at which home technology professional you want to work with, actually understand what their support structure is. Because I understand you're putting a lot of faith and trust in a home technology professional. You want to make sure they're going to look after that customer. And actually, it's interesting. I've always felt that as an integrator, we have the longest relationship with the homeowner because we often become their trusted advisor when it comes to anything that they want to, anything technical. So we'll be asked questions about which printer to buy or which cell phone, and that relationship spans a project. It goes on for years and years. When I left my company, after 13 years, I was still working with some of my original clients that I had because they were upgrading their system or they were looking for advice in certain things. So hopefully, through what I've just discussed, bringing in a home technology professional. Sorry, getting quite hot. Bringing in a home technology professional really needs to happen as early on as possible, and and depending on the relationship that you have, they won't necessarily start charging for that until the client is sort of signed up. So they'll often offer you advice. And that was the kind of relationships that I have with designers and architects. They would often come to us with some plans and we would offer some advice on it, give you an initial idea of how much it may cost right at that initial stage. So bringing someone involved right at the start is the most important thing. So where do you go to find a home technology professional? Well, we have a member finder on our website, and you can search by certain categories, product categories here. So specific lighting categories, location. So this would be a really the place where I would absolutely recommend that you start. There are some other optional subcategories and search fields down the right there that I'm going to talk about now. You'll see that there is we have a member of excellence, advanced member, CEDIA certified professional member, and COI. Well, these are our member recognition programs, and this is a new certification that we've brought in to really highlight the best of the best within the industry. So we have a Member of Excellence credential. This is a fairly new program, so I have to say there's only 10 so far in the world. But it is it's something that is increasing. We have about 72 active submissions currently for this. So this is where integrators go through, they have to dedicate a certain amount of time to professional development of their staff. So they have to go through continuing ongoing education. They may have an award-winning project. They have references from homeowners, and also trade references as well from vendors, from manufacturers. And also the fact that they would carry out training to design professionals. That's also a criteria. And that's where we get into the Certified Outreach Instructor credential at the bottom here, which I just wanted to mention. And I think we've got one in the room at the moment as well. But this is also a good place to go. So we offer training to architects and designers that is accredited, and NKBA accredited. So if you're looking to learn more about specific subjects, I think we have about 6 or 7 courses in various different subjects, from hiding technology through to energy efficiency, through to a general overview of how a home technology professional works. But if you wanted to find a certified outreach instructor in your neighborhood, that would be a good place to go. And maybe they could come to your office and offer some training to your team as well. So that's another good criteria. The advanced member is this entry level of CEDIA member for Member of Excellence. It is still very difficult to get that. You still need to supply references. And then the CEDIA certified credential, which you saw, which was just on the side there, that is where they have a certified, oops, push the wrong button, go back. Yeah, they have a certified individual on team. So those are the things to really look at when you go to the CEDIA website and you look about which home technology professional you want to work with. And then finally, yes?
So that is the page on your website.
This one here?
That's the page on the website that I think our Portland colleague and I put in for Seattle. I tried every single one of those buttons and no one in Seattle showed
Probably
up.
not on the Member of Excellence or Advanced Member yet, I would think.
Any of them.
You may have a certified. We can go through and look. Did you select a criteria as well, like a category, product category? Or did you select all categories?
All categories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe expanding the radius, it shows 10 miles.
I did mine at 25.
Yeah. Did you select all the ones down the right there?
Not every single one.
Yeah.
So I think it's just for your information that maybe it needs to be updated.
Yeah. Maybe that's an area where we don't have actually many certified individuals. It could be that. Yeah. But I will have a look at that afterwards if you want to. We can have a look at that. It's interesting. Yeah. Oh yeah, you've been to Seattle. Yeah. Okay. I would think so.
I tried 3 different zip codes.
So the other thing I just wanted to really, before opening the floor for questions, is really some of those the questions that you may ask integrators when you first start to have those conversations. And actually, my colleague over there, Olivia, we have those books that I recommend, as I said we had earlier, which is a sort of goes through all the different types of phrases and terms, things that you may want to look at specifically for design professionals. But these are maybe some of the questions that you would want to ask any integrator when you first have those conversations. It's probably the same as any kind of sub that you are potentially working with. Is look for examples of their work, visit a completed project, look for homeowner testimonials or references. I think it's really important to ask them about their discovery process. That's what I mentioned earlier, how they actually understand a client's lifestyle. Examples of documentation is critical. They may not expect you to ask that question, which is why I put it in there. but the documentation is so important, so asking for examples of that. Maybe some budget examples as well, and that's about setting expectations about the integrator that you're working with. and their support and maintenance process that I mentioned. And then finally, what is the differentiator? What differentiates them from other integrators that are in their market as well? So I think those are really important questions to ask integrators when you first open those conversations. So we've got a little bit of time for any questions that anyone may have. Yes?
The schematic drawings that
Yes.
you showed.
There's a microphone just coming over here.
You had that schematic drawing, and then after it, you had the very complex layout.
Yes.
Does a copy of that stay with the home?
Yes.
Okay. It should.
Absolutely should. It's a very good question. Absolutely, it should. It should be part of the binder exactly that is handed over to the homeowner at the end of the project.
Just in case that technician dies or moves.
Yeah. That's also it's a really good point. So that's the only way as well that you can maintain a project is through having good quality documentation. Because even, you know, I ran an integrator, I like to think I had good staff retention, but you would still get new technicians coming through that maybe don't understand the project. That is the blueprint for the system. That's the only way that you can know where everything is connected. So that's why it has to remain with the homeowner.
Okay, so she figured out the problem. I did check one of the things and I kept changing, you know, the zip code. And I had 25-mile radius, it wasn't coming up with anything. If you don't put anything in the box, a whole bunch of them show up. So something's wrong with the website.
Thank you, I appreciate that feedback.
Oh,
Marketing? Is there marketing in the room? Yes, there is. Okay.
Yeah, because there's quite a few in here, and you have to get a little description as you go down through and read some of them, but yeah.
Thank you.
She was the one.
I appreciate that feedback. We'll get that remedied. Yes.
Does your organization have any online education for allied professionals like us that we can plug into and learn more about these issues?
Yes, but it has to be delivered by our certified outreach instructors. So
We contact them directly ourselves?
That's right. Yes, absolutely. There's a whole bunch, as I said, a whole bunch of courses in loads of different subjects, including things like home theatre design, you know, depending on how detailed or technical you want to get.
A general overview.
Yeah, as well as an
Yeah,
overview.
for allied professionals.
Definitely, yes, there is.
So is that something that you're working with NKBA and CEU certified kind of things?
Absolutely, yes. That's part of our work together. Great. I don't know how we are. I think that's good for time. Any more questions? Thank you very much.